A lot of people.
Blue Line to Portland City Center and Hillsborough.
Línea azul al centro de Portland y Hillsborough.
The doors are closing. Train departing. Please hold on.
Hello, welcome. It's me, Alan, Big Heart Books and Classics. I'll have more footage of the peaceful protests at the end and the marches they've had here, but they've been gathering still, and it's only been violent at nighttime, as we know from other cities that are known for protesting and that. But the marches over the bridges here have been incredible, viewed from a drone, thousands of people. The fire department here were shooting out off cannons, or like one cannon in support, so that was cool. But I really I've been trying to get to this video for days and how to splice it together or whatnot. So it's part 2 of, I want to thank my buddy reading partner, Patrice Jones, for suggesting this book. I liked it more than she did, quite frankly, but we both loved the end. And I could talk about James's growing up and how he was refused service. He got mad and threw a glass of water at a waitress who refused him service one time. And then the part I mentioned in part 1, link below, I mentioned he's over in Switzerland, and the young kids are calling him the N-word, mispronouncing it. And he shrugs it off, but I want to let me talk specifically. I want to read something that I think is at the crux of the American black and white problem. The idea of white supremacy rests simply on the fact that white men are the creators of civilization, the present civilization, which is the only one that matters. All previous civilizations are simply contributions to our own, and are therefore civilization's guardians and defenders. Thus, it was impossible for Americans to accept the black man as one of themselves, for to do so was to jeopardize their status as white men. But not so to accept him was to deny his human reality, his human weight and complexity, and the strain of denying the overwhelmingly undeniable forced Americans into rationalizations so fantastic that they approached the pathological. Now, what is he saying there? Well, he's saying, for one, we don't have restaurants or anything that don't serve black people, but we have police that are killing them at a large. There's another part from the beginning of the book. And there is, I should think, no Negro living in America who has not felt, briefly or for long periods, with anguish, sharp or dull, in varying degrees and to varying effect, simply naked and unanswerable hatred, who has not wanted to smash any white face he may encounter in a day, to violate, out of motives of the cruelest vengeance, their women, to break the bodies of all white men and bring them low as that dust into which he himself has been and is being trampled. No Negro, finally, who has not had to make his own precarious adjustment to the N-word who surrounds him and to the N-word in himself. You're going back to his throwing the glass at the waitress. There's also parts about his father in here who was mentally ill, but who was a preacher. And he had they had very little contact with white people. The only white people who came to our house were welfare workers and bill collectors. It was almost always my mother who dealt with them, for my father's temper, which was at the mercy of his pride, was never to be trusted. But he gets into, he doesn't want James to have an education. Before the teacher came, my father took me aside to ask why she was coming. What interests could she possibly have in our house, in a boy like me? This teacher becomes very influential to James. And there's a direct correlation I found, and guess what? This book, Huckelberry Finn, where Huckelberry's father, who's transient, homeless, drunken bum, actually beats Huck for having a book and going to class and being able to spell and things like that. But boy.
Galleria, Southwest 10th Avenue. Doors to my left. Transfer to the Portland streetcar on 10th and 11th Avenues.
Vueltas a mi izquierda. Transferencia al Portland Streetcar en las avenidas 10 y 11.
So we're in Pioneer Square right now. I think they're just kicking off a little protest march. This is a pretty good size, to tell you the truth. So.
Galleria, Southwest 10th Avenue. Doors to my left. Transfer to the Portland streetcar on 10th and 11th Avenues.
Vueltas a mi izquierda. Transferencia.
In closing, I want to say yes, I'm buddy reading this with my father. He says he vaguely remembers reading it, but I've read it several times. And coming up this month, I'm going to be reading Richard Wright's Native Son. I've never read that. I'm going to be reading that with Jack at the Rambling Raconteur. He's read it before. He's going to reread that with me. Next month, I'll be reading Ellison's The Invisible Man with Hannah at Hannah's Books. And she's read that before. It'll be a reread for her. First time for me. And I'm going to be reading more James Baldwin with Patrice. She's going to pick out another one. I suggested Giovanni's Room, but that's a big, hard book filled with a lot of stuff. But I'm going to read that sometime this year. Patrice is going to pass for now on that book. Links below to other booktubers who have better videos than I on this. Brian has, they're such great teachers. I learned so much just from watching their videos. Brian has one on the history of lynching in America and how cruelty and prejudice were throughout the United States, Northwest, LA, and he brings it up to current day. Jack the Raconteur has a good video, and Hannah has one too, and also Madelyn put a video out this morning, I believe, and I'll link all for those below. So thank you, and be safe. So here's a good one in Portland. This is the it's a Mac store actually, isn't it? Yeah, I think, or Microsoft, but they're this is going all over where they're painting. It's all boarded up now. Every store is boarded up down here. Every place. But some are doing art. So cool, huh? Pretty cool. Portland, you know. Really strange days, and to think that the year is not even half over. Yeah, the courthouse all boarded up. Everything's boarded up. Some shops are open, but they look closed. Whoop. Crazy times, peeps. Crazy times.